Pro Lemon, certainly. I'd like to welcome everybody resoundingly, now we're finally on the road, to the 18th Forum at New South Wales Parliament House in the Roundtable series. Now, we have had a long break due to various bureaucratic reasons that I won't bore you with. This evening's topic is the Internet as a challenge to youth. The fact that most of us are no longer young is no excuse. We're still presenting the topic. We think it's a good one. Now, our four invited guest speakers, as advertised, are Matthew Keeley, Dr. Helen Pringle, Andrew Patterson, and Elena Jeffries, and they will speak in that order. And each speaker will address the issue as he or she sees fit, and in a particular way. Questions will be invited from members of the audience when all four speakers have concluded, but not until they've concluded. And no comments or interruptions during the presentation, please, because they won't be acknowledged. Now, these forums are sponsored by the Fellowship of the Roundtable, and that is a long-established discussion and study group which aims to raise political and cultural consciousness on issues of importance and to network for creative social change. That's quite a mouthful, I know, but you've got to start somewhere. The journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. Now, the Fellowship has no connection whatsoever, in case you have any lurking suspicions of conspiracy theories. The Fellowship has no connection whatsoever with any political party or organisation, or with any church, religion or cult, or with any business or commercial outfit of any kind whatsoever. We're totally non-profit, and that certainly is for sure. And all funds are spent on internet publicity leaflets of the kind you see out front and incidental expenses. The forum asks for only a small voluntary donation for those who can afford it, and this is appreciated, believe me, I say that from the very heart. We seek new members. Now, if you're interested in the work we do, if you're tempted, what you do is you take one of those application forms which may thoughtfully handed to you by one of the ladies out front, and give it to one of those same ladies at the desk near the door before you leave. Don't postpone it, or it will never happen. And when you hand it in, just mention how you found out about us. And, for example, if it's from a network of one of the speakers, we just like to know. It's a form of market research. Now, tonight's topic, I'll just give you a rough idea of the kind of topics that we've addressed in past forums. There will be 17 of them. God in politics, multiculturalism and Australian identity, terrorism and the death of democracy, immigration, closing the gates, the sanctity of life, the China bubble, is Australia ready for a republic, yes or no, the true face of crime in New South Wales 2008, China image of reality, the economy, are we still the lucky country, question mark, family law, is the man the loser, another question mark, cyber hate, censorship on the internet, politics and the police, peak oil, the Mayan calendar, is the world about to end, yet another question mark. We thought that would be an absolute fizzer, that it was a sellout, populate or perish, all these question marks, Afghanistan, yes or no, that was our last one. Now, the first speaker in our lineup tonight is Matthew Keeley. Matthew Keeley is the director of the by the way, is this microphone coming across okay? Okay. I don't like microphones, so I'm just expressing what is a personal prejudice. Matthew Keeley is the director of the National Children's and Youth Law Centre, based in the Law Building of the Uni of New South Wales. The National Children's and Youth Law Centre, known as the Centre, is a community legal centre dedicated to addressing human rights issues for children and young people in Australia through legal change. The only community legal centre of its kind in Australia. Matthew had minor involvement in the Listen to Children report of July this year to the United Nations Committee on the Rights of the Child as part of the Child Rights Task Force Steering Committee involving the National Children's and Youth Law Centre and UNICEF Australia. So I'd like you to welcome Matthew Keeley, please.
Thank you, David. thank you too to the Fellowship for inviting me here to the 18th Forum. It's wonderful to be here at Parliament House in the beautiful Jubilee Room, and I heard David say before that he felt very much at home, given that the Fellowship had returned to the Jubilee Room, and I certainly feel quite proud to be speaking to you in such a wonderful location. I'm a former Luddite. Now I'm what people call a digital immigrant. I'm an occasional internet gatekeeper for my two children, aged 13 and 11. I'm often ignorant of precisely what they are doing online, and I'm full of trust and hope for them. I'm a long-standing disability lawyer and advocate with an interest in internet access for everyone. I'm a children's lawyer advising in matters where the internet or the World Wide Web collide with issues of child protection, abuse, exploitation, bullying and privacy, amongst other types of legal issues. But it is the hope and trust that inspires me, not the cases that I've become aware of where the internet or the web have been used to cause harm. It is the many positive and benign online actions of youth that inspire the challenges that I wish to speak to tonight, not the challenges of addressing cyberbullying, sexting or child pornography, although to the extent that there might be questions about legal issues that we've encountered in those areas, I'll be happy to take those questions later. I prefer tonight to focus on the challenges for our youth, who many know as digital natives, and their challenges to use the internet as a force for positive social change. In short, to take responsibility for shaping the internet, the web, and the digital future of all. And those challenges I'll speak to in three broad subheadings of creating young people as creators and producers online, educating young people taking a role in education of themselves and others, and young people as advocates in regards to all matters digital. So I called my paper, and obviously the topic is the internet as a challenge to youth, but the colon was the digital natives are restless. There are 3,170,000 results that come up when digital natives and definition is entered into Google. And amazingly, it took just 0.24 seconds for those results to be made available to me. So without much information available to me on a single search, and with that speed of information delivery direct to me, is it any wonder that the web or the internet makes some of us restless? Now, the first non-sponsored result, sorry, I seem to be, there's some sibilance there. Going back a bit. The first non-sponsored result, does that sound okay?
A bit closer.
Closer. So the first non-sponsored result is from Wikipedia. A digital native is a person who was born during or after the general introduction of digital technology, and through interacting with digital technology from an early age has a greater understanding of its concepts. In most cases, the term focuses on people who grew up with 21st century modern technology. So the youth of our topic, therefore, are all potentially digital natives. Now, our digital natives' restlessness, we first identified, could be caused by the volume and speed of information communication processes. But that single search in Google, I think, illustrates two other points of restlessness. The first result was, in fact, a sponsored result. Google took me directly to Google Dictionary, so Google self-referencing itself. And that search result, I guess, reflected the for-profit motive of much that can be found on the web, and a source of attention for everyone who uses the web. The other, I guess, point of restlessness is that I mentioned earlier that all our youth are only potentially digital natives. In actual fact, the number of digital natives is actually quite small, and there are many more young people who can only aspire to that title, who might at best be a aspiring to the title of digital immigrant like myself, someone who is only lately coming to digital technology and digital literacies, or for many people in rural and regional and remote Australia, for many Indigenous households, for example, where there is almost no level of digital technology or interaction in the home, and hence no natives born to the digital world in those environments. So taking this concept further, the concept of the digital native, the concept situates, and it is a contestable descriptor, but one that I'm reasonably comfortable with. The concept situates the internet as a place. It situates the internet and digital experience as real, not virtual anything. And it suggests that digital natives are, of course, at home in that environment, when online and when interfacing with digital technologies. So digital natives therefore share digital cultures. And it's sounding a bit like a cultural studies lecture, but I will persist with it. So in the online world, we have sameness and difference. We have replication, multiplication. We have divergence and branchings off, exponential growth, destruction and redundancy. New digital economies are created, new digital communities, and new digital cultures and subcultures. And these grow dynamically and often exponentially. It's a kind of bringing together at first, and sometimes a fracturing apart, and sometimes then a further bringing together where young people combine in digital communities of interest. And these digital natives, if they're lucky enough to have earned that title of digital native, know this terrain. As producers online, they've in fact shaped it or have been complicit in shaping it. And in years to come, as with all of us here, they will be responsible for the habitability of that terrain, how habitable it has been allowed to become. So it's, I guess, with a sense of responsibilities more so than rights, unusual for a human rights lawyer that I come to speak to these issues today on the three topics I mentioned earlier of creation, education and advocacy. Now as I do so, I'm conscious always of time, and I realise that my own digital interface, which might explain why I'm only a digital immigrant, I failed to turn on. So I have here my smartphone. One of the great trends, of course, in the digital realm is that portability and smartphones technology are purported to become ubiquitous sometime soon. Of course, one can reasonably surmise that there are some fairly significant economic barriers to access for some people getting access to smartphone technology. But consistent with my status as a digital immigrant, I in fact neglected to turn on my stopwatch to tell me how long I've had. The point about creation is that, as many have already observed, young people and all of us when we're online are generally creating content, and we're also consuming content. And some people have even caused this to be called, have come up with the idea of young people as prosumers, producers and consumers. But just as in the beginning was the word, and the word, it seems, was binary, and just as creation in that context led to a situation of some gestation and ultimately the guardianship, so too I think it is with young people and the internet. They are as much creating the space as they are consuming in it. And as such, as I mentioned earlier, they have a responsibility, I believe, to shape that space for the benefit of all. I had an image of cyberspace as already being full of space junk, cyberspace junk, being the detritus and some of the worst aspects of creation. My challenge, or indeed as I think the challenge to young people that the internet presents, is to create content, not merely consume it, and to, by doing so, create the internet or the World Wide Web that we would want. And much as it is with our society, and as expected from someone coming from my position as a human rights lawyer, one would hope that that internet and the World Wide Web is created in a way which eliminates or attempts to eliminate the many inequalities that is currently experienced in the digital divide. So the first great challenge, I believe, for young people is to become the very creators of the internet and therefore responsible for it. The second is, I think, in the realms of education. I was reading today in Youth Studies Australia about a recent study in which it was identified the significant gap between the use of the internet in the home, for those homes lucky enough to have access and where we might have emerging digital natives, and the use of the internet in schools. The study found that there was a greater sophistication in the use of the internet at home than in schools. The teachers were not adequately themselves trained to teach internet usage in our schools, and that's because they themselves are by and large, like myself, clumsy in my technology, digital immigrants, and they were speaking to the very people who had been born and bred to the technology. And as such, the teachers were finding it difficult to implement the technology into the schools, and therefore finding it difficult to create meaningful home study and home opportunities for ICT type learning. So the second challenge of the internet that I would suggest presents to young people is in the great area of education. I happen to be one of those people who is a great fan of Noel Pearson's and who in recent years have begun to respond to his clarion call that education is the great leg up for all Australians. And I think in the realms of the digital, that a responsibility for educating young people around how to work online and how to work ethically online falls to young people themselves, given the great disparity between their skills in the space and those, for example, of many teachers and education departments. The last area I shall mention, I'm not sure what time, but 5 minutes, thank you. The last area I shall speak to in terms of, I think, a challenge that the internet presents to young people, to these digital natives, is in advocacy. One of the fundamental human rights that we speak of when we talk of child rights is the rights of young people to participate in the very matters that affect them. And it's reasonable, I think, to surmise that the development of the internet into the future is a matter of great import to young people, and as such, something they need to be very much involved with. Recently, I've been involved in 3 government reviews which have taken various approaches to this issue of child participation. In participating in the cyber safety review conducted by the Senate Joint Parliamentary Committee of the Commonwealth on that issue, it was only very late in the day that I think the Commonwealth realised that on this very important matter they hadn't sought the voice of young people themselves, and managed to fix that up with a survey late in the day. On the issue of the funding for schools, when I wrote to David Gonski and the panel to advise that it appeared to us that no specific efforts have been made to engage with young people and consult them on this most fundamental issue, how the future of their schooling might look. We got a letter in reply saying, words to the effect of, well, we're just a panel, we're not actually the government, and we're not actually making decisions, and so we'll leave consultation on this with young people to the government when they receive our report. And on the matter of the Northern Territory intervention and Minister Macklin's 6-week consultation, we didn't even get a promise to go that far. we really got a letter that said that we've made all the consultations we're going to make, and yes, nothing specific and really happened for young people, but they might have been consulted or might have offered their views along the way at various points of call. Well, I don't think the internet can be like that. I don't think this space, which is once created by young people and on which they will become so dependent and in which they will also find their independence, can be a space in which we can hold them silent and not permit them to take their place in the regulatory reform and the policy development around it. So I've labelled the next great challenge for young people in this space that of advocacy, and in particular advocacy for the elimination of those inequalities that I referred to earlier, be they the uptake by Indigenous communities, the lower levels of uptake in RRR communities, and the development of levels of digital literacy that will support young people into the future. I really do believe that young people themselves have the most to say about that. David, and to the fellowship, in conclusion, I'd just like to say thank you for having me here. There are many challenges, there are many issues that we confront as lawyers in this space, but on the hopeful side, in that spirit of trust and hope that I bring to bear for my own children, I would suggest that I really hope that they become creators in the digital space, that they work to educate each other and